Hello, welcome back. I wanted to do a informational video on what I believe to be beekeeping myths. I'm using the term myth pretty loosely. I don't want to say that they're wrong to do. It's more like some overzealous practices that have kind of been talked about and it's kind of stuck as an absolute truth. And I just disagree with it based on kind of logic, what other older beekeepers say, and what I've done and what I've experienced. So I'll get right into it with myth number one. So, myth number one would be the saying that you have to move your bees either under 2 feet or more than 2 miles. So, 2 feet or 2 miles. It sounds nice. It's got a nice cadence to it. It's a nice little saying, but it's just not true. You can move your bees 3 feet, 5 feet, 50 yards. People I hear they want to move their bees across their yard, and people are saying, "No, 2 feet every 3 or 4 days." I mean, that's just insane to me. Just move your damn bees. So what's going to happen is some of your foragers are going to return back to the old location when they leave the hive in the new location. That's true. I'm not going to deny that. But if you look at a foraging bee, it has about a week left in its life cycle. Foragers are in their last stage of their life and they're now going to work themselves to death. So when those foragers return to the old location, one of two things will happen. They're either going to get adopted into another hive or they're going to die. But it's not going to be detrimental or catastrophic to that colony or certainly not your yard, your entire yard. That idea might be a little disconcerting to you and it might be, that might bother you. And that's fine. Then you do follow that rule, 2 feet or 2 miles. And I won't knock you or criticize you if you don't have the stomach for knowing that's, some of those bees are going to die, then I understand. But just know that you don't have to do it. So 2 feet, 2 miles, don't need to do it. Myth number two would be a lot of people say that when you split a hive, you do like a walk away split, that you have to take what's going to be the new hive that's waiting for a queen to be either made or mated, that you have to move that to another yard. You don't. And there's things to look out for to avoid why people say you need to do that. So it's a lot like the 2 feet, 2 miles rule. So what the thought is, if you take that new hive and you split it, and you take the hive that's awaiting a queen and move it, within your yard, that all the foragers are going to leave that hive and return to the old hive. This is true. But when you make that split, you're going to give the queenless side of the split in the new location a lot of nurse bees and capped brood. Yes, you're going to have some foragers. You can't completely eliminate foragers and pick foragers for this one and nurse bees for that one. So those foragers are going to leave that hive, and they most likely will return to the original host hive that they came from. And what I do when I do a split is I will go out maybe 2 or 3 days later, even a week later, and if you see that that newer colony is a little light on foraging force, just swap their positions. It's as simple as that. So what's going to happen is you swap the positions. Now all the foragers leaving from the forager heavy hive in the new location now is going to return to the previous location. So you just swap the hives out. That's it. Now I wouldn't swap hives out if you need to boost a colony like that was in trouble. Because the whole idea of boosting a colony is you want to give it resources, you want to give it cat food, you want to give it nurse bees, it kind of boosts the morale, you're helping that hive. A hive that you split doesn't need help. It's naturally going to be light on foragers because you moved it. So if you want to move it to another yard, fine. My point here is that you don't have to. Okay, myth number 3 would be about combining hives. A lot of people believe that you have to locate and dispatch the queen and then combine the hives. And not only do I think that you don't have to do that, I don't think you should. What you're now doing is you're selecting which queen is better. And I don't know how any human can figure that out. I figure let the bees choose. So what happens in a newspaper combine? You're going to put a sheet of newspaper down. You got hive 1 on the bottom, hive 2 on top. The, all the worker bees are going to start chewing through that newspaper. You have 2 separate colonies, 2 separate pheromones. The pheromones will slowly merge and it will become one. And then the worker force will decide which queen they like better. I imagine it's based on pheromone strength and how the queens perform. So they will choose which queen is going to be their queen and they will eliminate the other queen. This kind of ties into another misconception, I'll call it. People say, oh, just combine them and let the queens fight it out. Well, queens, they don't fight it out. It's not like some, death match or some cage match where they're going to battle it out, dueling queens. It just doesn't happen. 2 mated queens, they don't fight. They just don't. Virgin queens, yes. A virgin queen and a mated queen. The virgin queen could get hold of that mated queen, and she will win if there should be a duel or some sort of a fight. I still believe that the mated queen's colony will do its best to protect her from that virgin queen. That being said, whenever you combine a hive, you do want to make certain that there's no chance that there's a virgin queen or a queen cell getting ready to merge with a mated queen inside of a hive. So just put your newspaper down, combine your hives, they'll decide which queen they want. Myth number 4, feeding your bees makes them lazy and not forage for natural resources. Not only do I think that's not true, I think it's a really silly idea. I haven't heard it a lot, thank God, but it has, it's come up here and there. So the thought is that you're feeding the bees and they're getting used to being fed, they're going to get lazy. I don't think in a bee's short amount of time that it is alive is going to actually get accustomed to being fed and become lazy. You literally can't train a bee in 4 to 6 weeks. Also, the bees that are older and about to die are not passing any information on to the younger bees like, hey, this dude feeds us once in a while. We don't have to go and bust our butts to get resources and forage. So just chill out and wait, and this guy will come by and throw some feed on the hive. That's it's about as silly as it sounds. So what I will tell you is if you don't feed your bees and they're low on resources, they will definitely die. So feed your bees if they need it. Myth number 5, which is more of a misconception or a mistake that new beekeepers make. My bees froze to death. They didn't freeze to death. And they may have froze to death, but that's not the reason for the decline of the colony and the demise of the colony. Freezing to death is a symptom of an underlying issue, whether it be high virus loads, starving out, just a failing queen. You if you didn't manage your mite loads properly and the winter bees are not living as long as they need to get back into the period where the queen does start brooding again, and that colony is going to dwindle and it's not going to be able to generate the heat that it needs to survive the winter. Your bees don't freeze to death. It's something else. That brings me to my final thought, and it's more of a philosophy. Whenever you lose a colony, the first thing you have to ask is, what did I do or not do to make this happen? Sometimes there's just cases where it just happens, and and that's it. But more times, most times, it's something we did or didn't do, and we as beekeepers have to learn how to accept that blame. It's very easy on the ego and to say, "Oh, my bees froze to death," because it absolves you of any wrongdoing. It's nice and easy, but you're not going to learn from that. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Not only is there nothing wrong with it, they're actually good because they teach us what not to do. If you keep making the same mistake over and over again and you keep doing the same thing, expecting a different result, then that is going to lead to failure. If you make a mistake and you lose a hive and you throw your hands up in the air and say, I suck, I quit, that's failure. But I cannot stress enough, mistakes are not failure. Mistakes are, in a sense, a good thing. It's a learning tool. So embrace your mistakes, learn from them, and don't beat yourself up over it. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all next time.